The night was quiet. The city lights were far away, only a faint glow on the horizon. Around the junkyard, everything was dark, broken, and forgotten. Old cars stood with missing wheels. Rusted machines leaned against piles of scrap. The air smelled of oil and dust. Most people never came here. For them, the junkyard was just a graveyard for metal. But for one man, this place was alive with secrets. He walked slowly through the narrow path between the piles. His boots crunched against broken glass and gravel. In his hands, he carried a small bag, heavy with food. His steps were careful, almost silent, as if he did not want anyone or anything to notice him. His eyes moved from shadow to shadow. He knew he was not alone. Every evening he came here with food. Bread, fruit, sometimes cooked meat. He never kept much for himself, but what little he had, he shared. The junkyard had become his second home. But it was not the rusted cars that brought him here. It was something else. Something hidden. Something that made his heart beat faster every time he walked through the gates. He stopped near an old shipping container. The red paint had peeled away and one door hung loose. Around it, the shadows seemed thicker, darker, as if the night itself was guarding it. The man bent down and placed the bag of food near the entrance. He whispered softly, though no one was close enough to hear. "There you go. Eat well tonight." Then he stepped back. He never stayed too close. He never tried to force himself inside. He knew better. Whatever lived there had to come out on its own. For a moment, nothing happened. The wind whistled through the hollow pipes. A rat ran across a pile of cans, its claws making a sharp sound. The man folded his arms and waited. His breath made small clouds in the cold air. Then from inside the container, a faint noise. A low sound, almost like a growl, but not from any dog or cat. It was deeper, strange, almost vibrating in the air. The man froze, his ears sharp. He knew that sound. He had heard it many times before. A pair of eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. They were not human eyes. Larger, rounder. The pupils stretched thin like a cat's, shining with an otherworldly light. The man felt a chill crawl across his skin, but he did not move. Slowly, the eyes blinked, watching him. Then another pair of smaller eyes appeared beside the first. Two shadows, one tall, one small, stood just inside the container. The man's heart raced. He had seen them before, just for seconds, never clearly. A mother and a child. Not from Earth, not from this world. Their skin had a soft glow, like pale silver under the moon. Their movements were sharp, nervous, always ready to run. They were not monsters, but they were not human either. They were something in between, something alien. The child made a soft sound, a high pitch of curiosity. She leaned forward, her small hands gripping the metal frame of the container. The taller figure, the mother, pulled her back quickly. A protective arm wrapped around the child's shoulders. The glowing eyes narrowed, fixed on the man, as if measuring his intentions. The man did not step closer. He only raised his hands slowly, showing he had nothing else with him, nothing dangerous. "It's safe," he whispered. "Just food." The mother tilted her head, her eyes never leaving his. Slowly, very slowly, she stepped forward. The sound of her movement was light, almost too soft to belong to a body. She reached down and touched the bag with long, thin fingers. Her skin shimmered under the starlight. The child peered from behind her arm, her eyes wide, curious, full of hunger. The man smiled softly, but he did not laugh or speak again. He knew his voice might scare them. Instead, he waited as the mother pulled the bag into the shadows. For a moment, silence. Then faint chewing sounds, quick and desperate. The man felt his chest grow heavy. They were starving. That was why he kept coming back. That was why he gave away what little food he had. In that moment, he did not feel afraid. He felt something else. A strange connection, like invisible threads pulling them together. They were not human, but they were alive. And they were alone, just like him. The night grew colder. The man pulled his jacket tighter and took one step back. He knew he could not stay long. The longer he stayed, the more danger he brought. If anyone saw him here, if anyone asked questions, the secret would be lost. And secrets like this, secrets about strange beings in the junkyard, would not survive if the world found out. He turned to leave, but his eyes looked back once more. Inside the shadows, he saw the child watching him. She tilted her head, almost like she wanted to follow. The mother whispered something, soft in a language the man could not understand. The child stayed behind, but her glowing eyes stayed locked on him until he disappeared into the darkness. That night, as he walked away from the junkyard, the man's thoughts burned with questions. Who were they? Where did they come from? Why were they hiding in a forgotten corner of Earth? And most of all, how long could this secret last? The junkyard was full of broken things, but hidden inside it was something far more valuable, far more dangerous. And every night he came here, the mystery grew deeper. Something was coming. He could feel it. The next evening came quickly. The man returned to the junkyard carrying another bag of food. His boots crunched against the dirt, his breath visible in the cold night air. The silence of the junkyard was the same as always, but something felt different. The shadows seemed heavier, the wind sharper, and his heart beat louder with each step. He reached the same spot near the old container. He placed the bag down, just as he had done before. But tonight he did not step back as far. Something inside him whispered that it was time to see them clearly. The container door creaked. The man froze, his body tense. Slowly, very slowly, the shadows moved. The tall figure appeared first, the mother. She stepped into the moonlight, and for the first time he saw her completely. Her body was slim, her skin pale with a soft glow that shimmered like silver dust. Her eyes were wide and luminous, watching him with caution. She wore no clothes like humans, only a thin layer of something that looked alive, clinging to her skin like fabric woven from light. She looked fragile, but there was a strength in her stance, a strength of a protector. Behind her, the child stepped out, holding tightly to her hand. The little one's eyes were even brighter, filled with curiosity. Her small head tilted left and right, studying the man, studying the world outside the container. She looked almost human, almost familiar, yet strange enough to make the man's heart twist with wonder. The mother pulled the child closer, her body shielding her. The man raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "I brought food," he whispered softly, his voice breaking the silence. The mother's eyes narrowed. She said something in her own language, soft, musical, but full of warning. The child made a sound too, lighter, almost like laughter. She pointed at the bag of food with excitement. The man stayed still, careful not to frighten them. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from the weight of this moment. For days he had only seen glowing eyes in the dark. Now they were here in front of him, real, alive, and vulnerable. The mother bent down slowly, never looking away from him. She grabbed the bag with long, elegant fingers and pulled it toward her. She opened it carefully, almost suspiciously, before offering a piece of bread to the child. The little one took it eagerly, biting into it with small, sharp teeth. Her eyes lit up and she made a soft sound of joy. The man smiled, though he kept his distance. He felt a strange warmth spread through him. Watching her eat made him feel as if he had done something important, something good. But then the mother stepped forward. Just one step. The man felt his breath catch. She studied him closely as though trying to decide what he truly was. Friend or enemy, danger or hope. Her eyes moved across his face, down to his hands, then back up again. Finally, she made a sound, a low hum, almost like a question. The man shook his head slowly. "No danger," he whispered. "I only want to help." The mother tilted her head as if she could almost understand. Her grip on the child's hand loosened slightly. The little one took another bite of bread, then peeked at him from behind her mother. The junkyard around them was silent, but the moment was alive with tension. The man knew he had to be careful. One wrong move and they would vanish back into the container, maybe forever. Then the child did something unexpected. She let go of her mother's hand and stepped forward. Just one small step. The mother gasped softly, reaching out, but the child stopped just short of the man. Her big glowing eyes stared at him, full of curiosity and innocence. The man felt his chest tighten. He crouched slowly, lowering himself to her level. His movements were gentle, careful. He picked up a small piece of fruit from the ground, held it in his palm, and extended it toward her. The mother tensed, ready to pull the child back. But the little one looked up at her, then back at the man. After a pause, she reached out with her tiny, glowing fingers. She touched the fruit, then quickly snatched it and ran back to her mother's side. The man let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. The child laughed, a soft musical sound that echoed faintly in the junkyard. For a second, even the mother's stern expression softened. It was only a moment, but it was enough. A connection had been made. The man stood slowly, not wanting to push further. He gave a small nod and stepped back. He knew not to stay long. Trust was fragile, and it had to grow slowly. The mother pulled the child close, speaking softly in her strange language. She looked at the man again, her eyes less sharp now. Still cautious, but not as hostile as before. As the man turned to leave, he felt their eyes follow him. The child peeked out again, waving her small hand in the air. The gesture was clumsy, but it was clear. It was a wave. The man smiled, lifting his hand in return. Then he disappeared into the night. That evening, as he walked away, he knew something had changed. The barrier between them had cracked. The fear was still there, but so was curiosity. And in that fragile space, something new was growing. Trust. But deep inside, the man also knew something else. If he had found them, others could too. And not everyone would come with food. The junkyard was no longer just a graveyard for broken things. It had become a secret place where two worlds had met. And secrets, he knew, could never stay hidden forever. The nights passed slowly. Each evening, the man returned to the junkyard carrying food in his worn bag. The path felt less lonely now. His steps were the same, his routine unchanged, but something inside him was different. He was no longer feeding shadows. He was feeding lives. At first, the mother always stayed near the container, never stepping too far from its safety. She watched him with those glowing eyes, sharp and alert. Her body was tense, ready to snatch her child back at the first sign of danger. The man understood. She was not only protecting herself, she was protecting her daughter. The little one, however, was different. Each night her curiosity grew stronger. She would peek out sooner, her small glowing hands reaching for food before her mother could stop her. She laughed softly when she bit into fruit, her sound light and sweet echoing in the cold air. The man found himself waiting for that laugh. It was the first true warmth the junkyard had ever given him. One night he decided to do something small, something to show them more than food. He picked up a broken toy car from the junkyard. The paint was chipped, the wheels bent, but it still rolled. He cleaned it, wiped away the dirt, and placed it near the food bag. Then he stepped back. The child's eyes widened. She looked at her mother, then at the toy. The mother hesitated, frowning in suspicion. But the child slipped from her grip and ran to it. She touched the car with her glowing fingers and gave a joyful sound. She pushed it forward. It rolled crookedly across the ground. Her laughter filled the junkyard, louder than before. The man smiled, kneeling down slowly to show he meant no harm. He picked up a small stone, rolled it across the ground toward her. The car and the stone met halfway. The girl clapped her hands, amused. The mother stepped closer, ready to pull her back, but stopped when she saw her daughter's happiness. For the first time, her gaze softened just a little. It became their ritual. Every night the man brought food, but also something else, an old toy, a shiny object, sometimes just a ball of tin foil that could be rolled and tossed. Simple things, but to the child they were treasures. She played, and her laughter lit up the night. The man never spoke much. Words were useless between them. Instead, he spoke with his actions. Slow movements, open hands, a smile that asked for nothing. The mother noticed this. She began to watch him differently, not as a threat but as a mystery. Still, there was distance. She never let the child stray too far. She never let her guard drop fully. Yet sometimes when the girl laughed too hard, the mother's lips curved into a faint smile. A smile she quickly hid, but the man noticed. And in that moment he knew. The bond was forming. One evening, a storm rolled in. The wind howled through the junkyard, rattling metal sheets and slamming loose doors. Rain poured down in heavy drops, turning the ground into mud. The man still came, though the food bag grew wet in his hands. He reached the container, placing it down carefully, but the storm was too loud. The child did not appear. For the first time, he thought they might not come out. Maybe they were too afraid. Maybe the storm kept them inside. He turned to leave, his clothes soaked, when suddenly he heard it. A soft cry. The child's voice. The container door opened and the little one peeked out, her glowing eyes wide. She reached out, pointing at him. The mother stood behind her, silent, watching. The man bent down and placed the food inside, closer than ever before. He met the mother's eyes, and for a moment neither of them moved. Rain dripped down his face, mixing with the mud. He should have left, but he stayed. Then something surprising happened. The mother stepped forward and placed her hand on the food bag while he was still holding it. Their fingers almost touched. Her skin shimmered faintly in the stormlight, cold and strange, but alive. She did not pull away immediately. She only looked at him with eyes that no longer burned with suspicion, but with something else. Recognition. The child giggled, running forward to grab the food. The mother finally released the bag, pulling her daughter close. The man stood, his heart racing. He did not know what that moment meant, but he knew it was important. From that night, the silence between them felt different. It was no longer heavy with fear. It was filled with unspoken trust. A fragile thread, yes, but real. The junkyard had changed. What once was only rust and broken things had become a secret home of laughter, shared food, and cautious friendship. The man began to wonder if he needed them as much as they needed him. But deep in the back of his mind, he knew this peace could not last. The world outside was not kind to things it did not understand. And if anyone discovered the mother and her child, the fragile bond they had built could shatter forever. For now, though in the silence of the junkyard, under the watchful eyes of the stars, they had each other. The junkyard was no longer just a place of broken machines. It had become a secret world, shared by a lonely man, an alien mother, and her curious child. Each night they met in silence, exchanging food, toys, and glances that carried more meaning than words. Trust had begun to grow, but secrets never stay hidden for long. It started with whispers in the nearby town. People spoke about strange lights flickering over the junkyard at night. Some said they saw shadows moving where no one lived. Others claimed to hear sounds, unfamiliar cries, sharp and echoing, unlike anything human. At first the stories were laughed at, but whispers always find ears, and soon the wrong people began to listen. One evening the man walked his usual path with food in his bag. The night was colder than before, the wind sharper. He felt uneasy, as though the junkyard itself was warning him. When he reached the gate, he noticed something unusual. Footprints in the dirt. Not his own. He knelt, studying them. Heavy boots larger than his. More than one pair. Someone else had been here. His chest tightened. Still, he went on. He found the mother and daughter waiting in the shadows, their glowing eyes nervous tonight. They sensed it too. The air carried danger. The child clung to her mother's arm, refusing to step forward. The man placed the food quickly, whispering, "Stay hidden tonight." The mother tilted her head, as if she almost understood. She did not step out. She only pulled her daughter back into the container, deeper into the dark. That night, the man did not linger. He walked away fast, his eyes scanning the piles of scrap around him. He felt eyes on his back, though he saw no one. The next day, he heard voices in the town. 2 men sat outside a store, speaking in low tones. "Something's in that junkyard," one said. "Not animals. Something else." "Government's already asking questions," the other replied. "If we're smart, we stay away." The man's stomach twisted. He knew it was only a matter of time before the wrong people came looking. That evening, he returned again. He tried to act normal, but his steps were quicker, sharper. His ears caught every sound: the flap of loose metal, the call of a crow, the crunch of gravel. Every noise felt like a warning. When he reached the container, the mother stood at the door, waiting. Her eyes glowed with worry. She made a low sound, almost like a question. The child peeked out, her small face frightened. The man raised his finger to his lips, a silent sign, "Be quiet." He placed the food down, but stayed longer than usual. His eyes scanned the junkyard again, and then he saw it. Far away, near the edge of the yard, a flicker of light. Not moonlight, not starlight, a flashlight. His heart jumped. He whispered urgently, "Hide!" The mother pulled her child inside, closing the container's broken door. The glow of their eyes vanished into the dark. The man crouched low behind a pile of scrap, his breath shallow. Voices drifted closer. 2 men, their flashlights cutting through the junk. "You sure you saw something?" one asked. "Yeah," the other replied. "Movement. Tracks. Something's here." The beams of light moved across the pile, sliding over old cars, broken machines, and torn metal. The man pressed himself against the ground, trying not to move. If they found the container, it would be over. The men drew closer, their boots crunching the gravel. One of the lights swept near the container. The man's heart pounded. He was ready to jump out, to draw them away if he had to. His mind raced with plans, none of them safe. But then, a sharp metallic crash echoed across the yard. A loose sheet of iron, blown by the wind, slammed to the ground far on the other side. The men froze, their lights turning toward the sound. "There!" one shouted. They ran toward the noise, their beams cutting away from the container. The man exhaled, relief flooding through him. He waited until the footsteps faded. "Tea." Then he rose, moving quickly to the container. He tapped the side softly. "It's okay," he whispered, "but you must stay hidden. They're looking." The door creaked, and for just a second the child's glowing eyes appeared. The mother's hand pulled her back immediately. The man understood. They were afraid, and they had every reason to be. That night he left the junkyard with his thoughts heavy. The bond they had built was real but fragile. The world outside was starting to notice. And once the world notices, kindness is rarely the first response. As he walked home under the dark sky, he knew one thing. Danger had arrived. The junkyard was no longer safe. But he also knew something else. He could not abandon them. Not now, not ever. The mother and daughter had no one else, and for the first time in years, neither did he. The junkyard mystery was no longer just his secret. It was now a secret under threat. A fragile family hiding in the shadows of a world that would never accept them. And the man realized he was willing to risk everything to keep them safe. The junkyard had always been silent at night. But this silence was different. It was heavy, waiting, filled with danger. The man stood at the edge of the broken fence, staring at the dark piles of scrap. His chest felt tight. He knew tonight would not be like the others. The day before, he had seen the trucks. Black vehicles parked near the town. Men in uniforms speaking quietly, carrying strange devices. They weren't curious neighbors or gossiping townsfolk. These were soldiers. They had come searching for something, and the man knew exactly what. When night fell, he moved quickly through the shadows of the junkyard. His bag of food felt light in his hand, but his heart felt heavy. He reached the container where the mother and daughter hid. The mother was already waiting. Her glowing eyes met his, sharper than before. She could sense the danger. The child clung to her side, her small hands trembling. "They're coming," the man whispered, his voice low. He pointed toward the fence. "You must stay hidden, no sound. No light." The mother tilted her head as if she understood the fear in his voice. She pulled her child close, whispering something in her own language. Then the sound arrived. Boots against gravel, the hum of engines, flashlights cutting through the night. Soldiers entered the junkyard, their voices hard and commanding. "Spread out. Search everything." The beams of light swept across the piles of scrap, crawling closer to the container. The man crouched behind an old rusted car, his pulse racing. He looked at the container door. If they found it, the aliens would be taken. And once taken, they would never be safe again, he thought quickly. He had two choices: stay hidden and hope the soldiers missed the container, or step out and lead them away. His stomach twisted. Hiding would be safer for him, but the mother and child would be trapped like animals in a cage. A flashlight beam stopped near the container. One soldier walked toward it, his boots crunching the dirt. The man's breath caught in his throat. It was too close. Too soon. Without thinking, he rose from his hiding place. He grabbed a piece of metal and threw it across the yard. The crash rang out loudly, echoing between the piles. "There!" he shouted, his voice strong. The soldiers turned instantly, their flashlights locking on him. The man's heart hammered, but he forced his legs to move. He ran, his boots slamming against the ground, his breath burning in his chest. "Stop!" a soldier shouted. Shots cracked through the air, warning shots, striking metal and sending sparks flying. The man ducked behind a stack of broken cars, the sharp smell of gunpowder filling his nose. He could hear them chasing him now. Heavy boots, shouts, orders. They thought he was the one they were looking for. That was good. That was the plan. He darted through narrow paths, twisting between heaps of rusted machines. His lungs screamed for air, but he kept going. Every step pulled the soldiers further from the container, further from the mother and child. Behind him, flashlights flashed wildly. Voices shouted directions. "Over here! Don't let him escape!" The man stumbled, his knee slamming against a piece of metal, but he forced himself up. Pain shot through his leg, but he ran harder. He had to. Finally, he slid behind a tall pile of scrap, pressing himself against the cold iron. He was trapped on three sides, only one path left open. His chest heaved, sweat dripping down his face. The soldiers' lights grew brighter, their voices louder. They were closing in. He had a choice again: give up and hope they only took him, or fight and buy more time. His hand closed around a thick iron pipe lying in the dirt. His grip tightened. He wasn't a soldier, but tonight he would fight like one. The first soldier rounded the corner. The man swung the pipe hard, striking the light from his hand. The beam spun into the dirt, broken. The soldier cursed, stumbling back. Another came forward. The man shoved the pipe against the scrap pile, knocking loose a rain of sharp metal parts. They crashed down, forcing the soldier to leap aside. Get him! Voices roared, but the man didn't wait. He ran again, blood pounding in his ears. He knew he couldn't win against all of them. But he didn't need to win. He only needed to keep them away. Behind him, the soldiers shouted in frustration. Their beams scattered, searching. But the container was far now, hidden in the dark. The mother and child were safe, at least for tonight. Finally, the man collapsed behind another wall of junk. His chest burned, his body aching. He pressed his head back, closing his eyes. In the silence, he thought of them. The mother standing tall and strong, protecting her child. The little one laughing as she played with a broken toy. They were alone in this world. And now so was he, but tonight he had chosen. He had risked everything for them. Not because they were human, not because they were like him, but because they were family now. As the soldier's footsteps faded into the distance, the man whispered to himself, "I'll protect you, no matter what." The junkyard was no longer just a hiding place. It was a battlefield, and he had taken his side. The junkyard was quiet again. The soldiers had left, but their presence still lingered like a shadow. The man's body ached from the chase. His clothes were torn, his hands bruised, his breath still heavy from running. Yet none of that mattered. What mattered was that the container had stayed hidden, and the mother and child were safe. When he returned, he moved carefully, listening for any signs of danger. The night was colder, and the junkyard smelled of smoke from the gunfire. He reached the container and tapped softly on its side. "It's me," he whispered. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door creaked open just a little, and two glowing eyes appeared. The child peeked out, her face full of fear. But when she saw him, her eyes softened. She made a small sound like a sigh of relief. The mother stepped forward, her tall frame blocking the doorway. She studied him closely, her eyes sharp, scanning his wounds, the dirt on his face, the cuts on his arms. For a moment, she said nothing. Then slowly she reached out her hand. The man froze. This was the first time she had done this. Her fingers, long and glowing faintly, brushed against his arm. Her touch was cool, almost electric, sending a strange shiver through him. It wasn't fear, it was gratitude. The child slipped past her mother and ran straight to him. She wrapped her small arms around his leg, holding tightly. Her glowing skin shimmered against his clothes. He looked down, stunned, and for the first time in years he felt something he thought he had lost. Belonging. He knelt, ignoring the pain in his knees, and placed a hand gently on the child's shoulder. She looked up at him with wide eyes full of trust. Her laugh was soft, like music breaking through the silence. The mother stepped closer, her eyes less guarded now. She made a sound in her strange language, soft and melodic. The man did not understand the words, but he understood the feeling. It was a thank you. That night they did not hide from him. For the first time, the mother let him sit near the container. He shared food not by placing it on the ground and stepping back, but by sitting with them, breaking bread into pieces and passing it by hand. The child ate happily, crumbs falling onto her lap. The mother ate slowly, her eyes still watchful but no longer suspicious. They did not speak the same language, yet silence became their language. The crackle of the wind through the junk, the sound of chewing, the soft hum the mother sometimes made. It all felt like a kind of conversation. The man thought about his life before this. Empty days, quiet nights, a world that had forgotten him. He had no family, no one waiting for him at home. But here, in this broken junkyard, with two beings not even from his world, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Needed. The child crawled closer and placed something in his hand. It was a small object, metallic, smooth, unlike anything he had seen. She giggled and pointed at it, then at him as if offering a gift. He studied it carefully. It glowed faintly in the dark, pulsing like a heartbeat. He had no idea what it was, but he smiled and nodded, placing it safely in his pocket. The girl clapped, delighted. The mother watched this exchange with quiet eyes. She no longer pulled her daughter away. Instead, she placed a hand on the child's head, then looked at the man. In that look, there was something deeper than gratitude. It was recognition, acceptance. For the first time, the man felt like more than a visitor. He felt like part of something. Hours passed. The junkyard grew colder, the stars brighter above. The man should have gone home, but he stayed. He listened to the child's laughter, the mother's soft hums, and the rustle of wind through the broken metal. For once, the junkyard didn't feel like a place of decay. It felt like a home. As the night deepened, the mother stood and approached him again. She placed her hand gently on his chest, right over his heart. Her glowing eyes searched his face. Then she made another sound in her language, slow and deliberate. He didn't know the word, but he felt its meaning. Family. The child yawned, curling up beside her mother. The man stood to leave, but the little one reached for his hand. She didn't want him to go. He smiled, sitting down again. He stayed until her eyes closed, her small glowing body asleep against her mother's side. The mother looked at him once more, her expression calm. She gave a slight nod as if to say, "You belong here now." The man leaned back against the cold metal of the container, staring up at the stars. He felt something he had not felt in years. Peace. The world outside was full of danger, soldiers, and suspicion. But inside this junkyard, he had found something worth fighting for. He had found a bond stronger than fear. He had found a new kind of family. The nights in the junkyard no longer felt cold. They no longer felt empty. The man came every evening, not only with food but with himself, with stories told in gestures, with laughter shared in silence, with trust that had grown stronger than fear. The mother, once so guarded, now allowed him to sit beside them. The child, once hidden in shadows, now greeted him with joy. They had become a family, even if none of them could explain it in words. But the world outside was not silent. The soldiers had not given up. Each night, the man noticed more tracks near the fence, more signs of searchlights on the horizon. He knew time was running out. The secret of the junkyard could not last forever. One evening, when the stars burned bright and the wind was still, the mother did something she had never done before. She stepped out of the container fully, carrying something in her arms. It was small, metallic, and glowing faintly, like the object the child had given him earlier, but larger, more complex. She placed it on the ground before him. Her long fingers moved across its surface, pressing points that lit up in soft blue light. The man stared, his heart pounding. It was not junk. It was not broken. It was technology. The object unfolded, pieces shifting like petals of a strange flower. Inside, a hologram rose, shimmering shapes of stars, planets, and paths between them. The man's mouth fell open. He was staring at a map of the universe. The mother's eyes glowed brighter as she pointed at one star in the hologram. She touched her chest, then touched her daughter's. She was showing him their home. The man's throat tightened. They weren't just hiding. They were lost. Stranded. The child reached into her small pouch and pulled out another glowing piece, pressing it against the device. For a moment, the hologram flickered, then stabilized. The mother turned to the man, her expression serious. She touched his hand, placing the final piece, the first one her daughter had given him, into the machine. The device hummed softly, its glow spreading. The junkyard lit up with light, reflecting against the piles of rusted metal. The man felt the vibration in his chest, deep and steady like a heartbeat. Then the mother spoke, not in her alien tongue, but in halting, broken English. Her voice was soft, almost trembling, as if the words were heavy. Home. Gone. She paused, then touched her daughter's face. Safe. With you. The man's eyes burned. He understood. Their world was lost. They had no one left. That was why they had stayed in the junkyard. Why they had clung to the shadows. They weren't just hiding, they had nowhere else to go. The mother placed her hand over his chest the same way she had done before. This time her words were clearer. Family. The child pressed against his side, glowing softly in the night. She looked up at him and whispered one of the few words she seemed to know. Papa. The sound struck him harder than anything else ever had. For years he had been alone, unseen, unwanted. But now in this broken place with beings from another world, he was something more. He was theirs. The device's glow dimmed, folding back into silence. The mother carefully put it away, her eyes meeting his with quiet strength. She was not asking for protection anymore. She was giving him a place among them. The man looked around the junkyard. The broken cars, the rusted machines, the scattered scraps. It had once been nothing more than a graveyard for metal. But now it was their home. Their world within a world. And he knew he had made his choice long ago. No matter what came, soldiers, danger, or fear, he would stand with them. Not as a visitor, not as a stranger, but as family. He pulled the child into his arms, her small glowing body warm against him. The mother placed a hand on his shoulder, her eyes soft, no longer guarded. For the first time in his life, the man felt whole. Above them, the stars stretched across the sky, endless and silent. Somewhere among them was a home they had lost. But here in the forgotten junkyard of Earth, they had found something new. Not just survival, not just safety. They had found each other. And together, they were family.